We're looking at a praying mantis, a fantastic insect you can find in your own backyard. It's an ambush predator. It loves to sneak up on things and eat flies and crickets and moths. And did you know the praying mantis doesn't just have 2 eyes, it actually has an additional 3 eyes in the middle of its forehead in between its antennae. If you take a closer look, you can see it yourself. Welcome to Cape Fear Critters. My name is Matt Colligan, and today is all about bugs. Welcome again to Airly Gardens. We're here in the classroom of the Garden Services Center where we've just installed a bug zoo. And it's more than just bugs in here. You can find anoles, we've got lizards, we've got skinks, we've also got crayfish, we've got a freshwater aquarium, we've got terrariums with some carnivorous plants, we've got praying mantises, crickets, some beetles. There's a whole diversity of wildlife here indoors. We're also going to go outside here in a moment to look for other things. But in this classroom, we really invite you to come and check out our exhibit, including the gallery-wrapped images of wildlife taken by local photographers. All these images are of animals that you can find here at Airly Gardens. So this is a wonderful learning space. We see thousands of students every year, and this is a great teaching tool for us here at Airly Gardens. But here in the classroom, we're really interpreting what's going on outside. So let's head out and see what we can find. We're standing outside of the Airly Butterfly House. This is a seasonal enclosure that we have open from April to October, and inside we have hundreds of individuals of butterflies flying around, a variety of species. We only fly species that are native to North Carolina. And inside we have a bunch of nectar plants and roosting plants and fruit feeding stations to keep the adult butterflies happy. And we're going to walk inside and check these animals out and see what those butterflies are up to. Did you know that North Carolina is home to 174 different species of butterfly? Here in New Hanover County, we have 94 different species of butterfly, which represent more than half of the state's butterfly biodiversity. And right now I'm going to release some newly emerged butterflies that have just eclosed or emerged out of their chrysalids. Oh, beautiful. These are mostly monarchs right here. We have 2 species represented. These green pupa or chrysalids up here are monarchs. These brown ones are Gulf fritillaries. And this is the first flight for these lovely monarch butterflies. They're really a tropical species that comes north in the summertime, and they migrate to Mexico in the winter to keep from freezing. And let's see, I'm gonna see if this fella will walk on my finger. This is a monarch butterfly, and I can tell it's a male because there's 2 black dots on its hind wing that only the males have. This is a member of the Nymphalidae family, a brushfoot butterfly. They can actually taste with the bottoms of their feet, and that's how the monarch knows where to lay its eggs. The mama monarch, she can't use just any old plant to lay her eggs on. She needs to find milkweed. And that's the only type of plant that monarchs can eat as caterpillars. And the way she knows if she's found the milkweed is if she tastes it with her feet. So they do a little scratch and sniff, moonwalk dance on the foliage, and if it tastes right, she'll lay her eggs. But watch out for the monarch. It is poisonous to animals with a backbone. Any vertebrate animal that eats this will find it distasteful because you really are what you eat. And this monarch, eating only milkweed, becomes poisonous because the milkweed is also poisonous. Milkweed is a plant that contains cardiac glycosides, a compound that would actually stop one's heart if you had too much of it. And it doesn't hurt the monarch, but it does benefit the monarch because now if a blue jay ever tries to eat a monarch, it'll spit it right out and it will never try it again because it will have an upset stomach. So I'm going to put this monarch down over here. So some butterflies can survive the winter because they have built-in antifreeze in their blood, sorbitol or glycerol, but the monarch lacks that. And that's why the monarch has to migrate down to Mexico. And all the monarchs east of the Rocky Mountains, except for a few in Florida, travel down to a small 70-acre parcel in the middle of an Oyamel fir forest in Mexico. And that's where they survive the winter. And once it gets warm enough, they'll leave their winter roost, they'll mate, lay eggs, and continue their journey north. So pretty exciting animals. Here we have the chrysalises. These green ones still have a few days to go, but this one here, you can see it looks dark. It's actually turning translucent or clear. And if you look closely, you can see the monarch's wing patterns shining through. The monarch gets its name from this gold band on the chrysalis. It reminds people of a king or queen's crown. And the first Europeans to come to North America saw this and thus coined the monarch as such. You can see the empty exuvias of these chrysalises. And these Gulf fritillaries down here, you might see a couple of them wiggle. They're very much alive, the ones that haven't hatched out yet. And this is a living creature, this is a living creature, this is a living creature. But right now, they're completely changing their bodies. Their caterpillar form is liquefying, they're redigesting, realigning all their body parts. And when it comes out, at the end of this metamorphosis, it'll be an adult butterfly. It's amazing. We should know that while there's lots of butterflies around here, there's also a lot of moths. In fact, there's a lot more moths. Moth species outnumber butterfly species by 12 to 1. So there's about 12 times as many moth species on this planet as there are butterflies. The thing is, butterflies are diurnal or day active generally, and moths are nocturnal or active at night, and we don't tend to see them as much. And you might have noticed that you see more butterflies in the summertime, and that's because butterflies are essentially solar powered. Their flight muscles in their thorax need to be somewhere between 50, 60 degrees Fahrenheit in order to fly, or warmer. So you might see a butterfly in December in this part of the world because we do have some 70-degree days, but largely in the wintertime, a lot of these butterflies have either migrated, they're staying in their chrysalis, such as the swallowtail family, throughout the winter. Some, as caterpillars, burrow into the ground, and some adults even hide behind tree bark. So they have all kinds of methods to avoid the winter cold. Ooh, here's a different species, one of the Gulf fritillaries that we had in here. Let's see if... Whereas the monarch could only eat milkweed as a caterpillar, this butterfly can only eat something called passionflower vine as a caterpillar. And that's how butterflies are. They're very picky and very specific eaters. And to encourage butterflies, planting native plants, plants that they've co-evolved with over millions of years, that's what they're going to be able to eat. And that's why we need to be careful planting non-native plants in our yard, because they just won't feed these kinds of animals. And you might wonder, well, who eats the butterflies? And the answer is everything. Only 2 eggs out of every 100 eggs laid in the wild actually make it to an adult. So 98% of these animals, their eggs, their larvae, their pupa, end up getting eaten along the way. For example, an eastern bluebird. We know little bluebirds, a single clutch of bluebird eggs, so that would be 3 bluebird eggs. If you hatch those bluebirds out, they will need to eat roughly 5,000 caterpillars combined in order to get big enough to fledge or to take their first flight. So caterpillars are a major main food source of things like birds and other vertebrates like reptiles, but also insects. Other insects and bugs, spiders will eat things like butterflies and their larvae. So they're a major part of the food web because they as caterpillars can convert plant tissue into protein tissue that more animals can digest. So we didn't have to travel very far outside of the butterfly house to find some amazing wildlife. I was just playing with some spider silk that was gold in color. It belongs to this banana spider up here. And the banana spider is part of the Nephila genus of spiders, and they make the world's strongest spider web material. I was able to take this set of keys and hang it off the web, and it held it just fine. This spiderweb material is stronger than Kevlar, which is what they make bulletproof vests out of. So it's an amazing creation by this spider, also known as the golden silk orb weaver, the banana spider. Great to have around, and they're fairly blind. She can't really see what you're doing, but not to fear. It's meaner looking than it really is. It doesn't really bite people, and a very docile animal. So just keep them out in your yard. They'll help eat up some of the mosquitoes and other pests. And moving around the corner, we've got another orb weaving spider. This one's called an orchard spider. They're very common around Wilmington. They have a fluorescent orange marking on their abdomen and some whites and black stripes and some green in there as well. Let's see what else we can find. This area around the butterfly house is planted more like an ornamental garden. Not a whole lot of native plants in this area, but still plenty of wildlife attracted to this spot. Oh, right here we have a third spider. This is a spiny orb weaver. Kind of looks like a crab, and it has spikes protruding out of its carapace and little black dots on its back that if you draw them together, it kind of looks like a smiley face. Spiders are really interesting. They'll recycle their web. Instead of rebuilding a new web all the time with new material, they'll take their old web, consume it, eat it, and they'll use that material that they digest to rebuild new webs. So they're really good at recycling. We've got some bumblebees, a honeybee over here. Oh, this shrub over here is covered with daddy longlegs, or harvestmen as they're known. That's a type of arachnid that is not a spider. So arachnids include ticks and mites, scorpions and spiders, and daddy longlegs. So some people think daddy longlegs are spiders. That's not technically true. They are part of the arachnid group of animals, however. This group of animals, the harvestmen, are known as opiliones. And a lot of people think that they are some of the most venomous arachnids around, but the truth is they have no venom glands at all. So you don't have to worry about being bit by one of those daddy longlegs. And you can see they like to congregate or aggregate in big groups, and that helps them defend against birds. They bob up and down, and that will kind of disorient predators. And in a group too, they release some smells that keep certain predators away, and that smell is more powerful when they're grouped together. Let's see what else we can find. Ooh, down here we've got an assassin bug, bright orange bug. That animal has a hardened proboscis. A butterfly has a soft proboscis that it coils up when it's not in use and uses to slurp nectar out of a flower. The assassin bug has a more sinister use for its hardened proboscis by piercing it into the sides of soft-bodied bugs and actually slurping their insides out for their food. So in addition to this assassin bug, we've got damselflies, dragonflies. There's a whole lot of exciting animals out here in the undergrowth just outside the butterfly house. But now we're going to go take a look at a more natural area and see if we can find some different creatures and some different habitats. just walked down the nature trail and we're heading to the Waterwise Garden to go look at a constructed wetland. Oh, here's another banana spider, and we can really see the difference between the male and the female. The female's much larger and will actually eat the male if she wants to. Sometimes there'll be up to a dozen males around this web. They want to mate with her and court with her, but they will only do that if she's busy eating something else. So really touch and go relationship here, but it's a great survival strategy because if nothing else goes into her web to feed her, well, she's always got a backup plan with those male spiders. Pretty cool. Over here we've got a freshwater stream that we're going to use our dip net to go fishing for and see what we can find. So here we are at the Waterwise Garden. This is a constructed wetland that brings stormwater runoff from neighboring areas, and this water is conveyed into our lake system and then goes out into Bradley Creek. The plants that are in here hopefully are cleaning up this stormwater, removing pollutants. We also settle out sediment in here, sand or soil, eroded soil that gets into the waterway. And if it settles out here, that's way better than having turbid water or very cloudy water going into Bradley Creek. So this is designed to help clean our stormwater runoff, but it's also a living habitat, and that's why we're here right now, is to go fishing for something called macro invertebrates. Macro meaning big enough to see with your eye, and invertebrate meaning an animal without a backbone. So that might include snails, leeches, water scorpions, dragonfly nymphs, you name it. There is a whole cadre of really cool critters living in this water, and all we need is a very simple tool called a dip net, and I've got some containers here to show off what we might catch, so I'm gonna go fishing. Ooh, look at what we got here. A little crawdad. Let's see if he'll play nicely. Ooh, there's an old crawdad skin. It molted, it got bigger, and this might be the one that came out of that shell. I'm gonna put him in here, and you can kind of see him curled up there on the side. Let's see what else I got. Oh, a fish. Oh, goodness gracious. A little bass, maybe. Cool. What else do we have? Oh, this is a tiny dragonfly. Dragonflies start their life in the water. Let me get them on my finger here. They might spend up to 5 years growing up in the water until they're big enough to metamorphose into the adult with wings. So some dragonfly nymphs will get about this big before they're ready to become an adult. Ooh, here's another dragonfly. This one's a little bit bigger. This little dragonfly here. We've got 67 types of dragonfly and damselfly in this county. Dragonflies are the bigger Odonata insect. Dragonflies rest with their wings out. Damselflies will close their wings behind them at rest, and damselflies in general are much smaller. It's looking a little cramped in here, so I'm gonna switch these over. Nice, that fish is much happier now. And if you're ever handling a fish, it's important to get your hands wet first. The fish is covered with a kind of mucilage, a kind of goo that keeps it healthy, things from getting inside. If you have dry hands, you can tear that layer off. But yeah, it looks like a little bass. Beautiful. Let's put him back in. Nice. And let's take a closer look here at our crawdad. Some people call them crawfish, crawdad. Look like a little lobster, but they live in the fresh water, and they swim backwards. Their tail swings underneath them, and they kind of do a little backstroke action there. Beautiful animal. They do get bigger around here, sometimes maybe twice, 3 times this size. And so I think it's time to let our friends go here. We caught a few things: dragonflies, a diving beetle, orb snail, the crayfish. We also had 2 vertebrates in here, animals with a backbone. That would be our little bass there. And also there's a gambusia fish in here, a mosquito. They call them mosquito fish. They love to eat mosquito larvae.
This is about as big as they get right there. And we'll put him back in the water. So let's go ahead and release them. And they can head back in there. And it's interesting to note that it's not just the animals that live in the water and the animals that live on the land. There's a lot of interaction between those two habitats. The crayfish, for example, will sometimes come out of the water to burrow into the ground, make a burrow, and that's where they will lay their eggs. So some live both in an aquatic and a terrestrial habitat. You can see all these dragonflies around here. Well, the dragonfly nymph, or the younger dragonfly, grows up in the water. The adults, they hover around here too, looking for all the insects that are flying around here that they could eat. And you can see a bunch of dashers in here and maybe some pond hawks. And these dragonflies also, as they might die or fall into the water, fish might eat them. Things are constantly falling off the trees. The roots under this stream are getting nutrients out of this waterway. So there's a lot of impacts going on here. The land and the water are interfacing a lot right here. You can even see water striders and fishing spiders walking on top of the water right now. It's a pretty diverse place. And definitely you find more wildlife, especially in the transition area between two habitats. So right here along the shoreline, all kinds of amazing animals are here to be found. So we're continuing our bug expedition out here at Smith Creek Park. This is one of the newer New Hanover County parks. This is a freshwater lake of about 40 acres, and we're surrounded all together. This parcel is about 180 acres. And it's an interesting location because this pond is actually human-made. When they were building Interstate 40, they used this as a borrow pit to build up the road, and that left a big indentation in the ground here. So it has filled with water. It's spring-fed out here, and we've even got it stocked with fish. And slowly but surely, wildlife, the plants and the animals are returning and filling up this habitat. Just along here on the shoreline, we see a lot of cattails and wax myrtle and a bunch of herbaceous shrubs and low-lying plants that are filled with all kinds of wildlife. We've seen butterflies and dragonflies, damselflies, leaf-footed bugs. So there's wonderful wildlife out here, but this is just one of the many habitats here. Over in some of the upland acreage there, we've got a pine savanna, dry xeric soils. Back in the deep corner there, we have some kind of wetland areas and some deciduous foliage. And surrounding this whole lake, there's about 1.25 miles paved trail, so it's wonderful if you want to come out here and ride your bike or run or take your dog on a leash around the trail here. But for us today, we're here for the bugs. So let's go take a look. So I'm walking along here and I'm seeing tons of grasshoppers. There's some leafhoppers down there. Leafhoppers have built-in gears in their legs which allow them to jump so high. Oh, we've got some caterpillars on this willow here by the water. Lots of different butterflies eat the willow plant. More dragonflies. Whoa! And there was a mosquito. These mosquitoes are kind of pesky. There's a fellow I'd like to introduce us to who knows a lot about mosquitoes, and maybe he can help us out. good afternoon, Keith. Oh, how are you,
Good
sir?
afternoon, Matt. How are you today?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. We're out here talking about bugs today, and we wanted to hear from the health department, from where you work at, and understand how some bugs, like the one I just felt on my arm, can affect our health, and what you guys do to help the citizens here in New Hanover County.
Well, basically, we have several different things in the county that affect our health. And one of the things are some of the insects we have flying around, such as mosquitoes.
Oh, mosquitoes, yes.
And mosquitoes in New Hanover County, I mean, there's like 40 different species of mosquitoes here in New Hanover County. Not all bite humans.
And is it just the females, too, of some species that...
Yeah, it's just the females that bite. They only live about 21 days.
Oh, my goodness. So I guess part of your job is to interrupt that life cycle and keep them from getting to adults so they might hurt us.
Oh yes, that's the main issue for us here in the county. We try to go ahead and help the public minimize the bite. We do several progressive programs such as adulticiding, larviciding, and also minnow transplants, the gambusa.
Oh, the mosquito fish, yeah, absolutely.
Where we can actually put it out in the water and let them naturally go ahead and eat the mosquito larvae. The main thing we try to do is we want to try to keep the population to a minimum. Sure. And we live in an area where we have both a salt marsh and brackish water, as well as wetland, woodland pools.
Sure.
So all these different areas breed different mosquitoes.
Ah, so not every mosquito would live in a freshwater pond. Some like the salt marsh, some like still black water. So there's a variety of habitats.
Oh yes, and we do a lot of larviciding in the county ahead of time, ahead of populations that might come off, and we try to minimize the amount exposure to the public. And then later on we have to basically wrap it up with what we call adulticiding.
Sure.
That's when we take them out in the air.
But that's not all you do. I've been hearing some of your stories, and you've been out in the thick of things where mosquitoes,
yes.
What did you say, some places have 50 to 100 bites per minute?
Yes, we go in some of these lows, and I mean the mosquitoes are just brutal.
Oh.
I mean, they are just totally just out of control, and that's what part of our job is, that when we find populations like this, that we try to either get it under a natural control with gambusa, or we'll have to put a chemical control in the water to go ahead and put the mosquito larvae down so they don't emerge or don't go through the full life cycles.
So besides just an annoying bite, what are some of the threats that these mosquitoes are carrying with them?
The health department here, we actually have flocks of chickens. And we actually go out and we pull blood samples from the chickens, and that's how we tell whether we have virus activity in our area.
Oh.
Once, about every 2 weeks, the blood is pulled from the chickens. It is sent to our facility where it's spun down, and it's sent out to about Colorado to a lab out there.
Oh, wow.
And they send us back the results, whether or not it has Highlands J, West Nile, lacrosse, or Eastern encephalitis.
Oh, it's triple E. That's
E.
no fun. And West Nile virus. Oh my goodness. So those chickens are like the canary in the mine shaft in a way, and they let us know if there's a presence of that kind of virus.
You're absolutely correct. I mean, they do a terrific job for the residents as well as for the health department.
Wow.
I mean, they let us know what we have going on in our area.
Wow, well thank you, chickens, and thanks, Vector Control. That's fantastic. So Keith, in addition to these mosquitoes, what are some other wildlife, insects, arachnids that we have to worry about around here?
Well, here in eastern North Carolina, we do have to worry about tick-borne illnesses too. And that goes into the Rocky Mountain spotted fever or the Lyme's disease. And we want to encourage everybody who is out in the outside to always go ahead and tuck their pants legs in, wear light colored clothes. And if you see a tick and you do pull a tick off, go ahead and paste it to a little 4x8 card and save it.
Oh.
This way here, if you have a rash that appears or a bullseye mark or something like that, and you do have to go seek medical attention, you actually have that tick so you can refer back to it.
Oh, I wish I had known that. I had Rocky Mountain spotted fever the first year I was working down here, and should have saved that tick. It took us a few days to find out what was wrong with me, so that's a big deal. So I can't thank you enough for the work you do. This is fantastic. You're preventing diseases, you're keeping us safe. Keith, thanks so much for everything you're doing.
Okay, Matt.
And thank you guys for watching us on another episode of Cape Fear Critters. We'll see you next time. Have fun and check out that wildlife in your backyard. Take care.